I sat alone at the table, the birthday cake untouched, 78 candles flickering for no one. The chairs stayed empty. The clock mocked me louder with every tick. Then, an hour later, ping. My daughter-in-law had posted the baby photos. No caption, no tag, just proof that they were all together, without me. And suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The cottage smelled like cinnamon and lemon oil. Norma had polished the kitchen counters that morning with the same cloth she used every year, soft, frayed, and stained faintly with birthday cake frosting from decades past. The dining table was set with deliberate, quiet care. A navy blue runner stretched across the surface, lined with little place cards she'd written in her best cursive. One for Jason, one for Melissa, one blank, waiting for the baby's name, if they'd chosen one. She'd bought balloons in town the day before. Pale yellow and mint green, a color palette she thought felt modern, though she wasn't entirely sure what that meant anymore. The candles were already lit, 3 on the table, 2 on the mantel, one small one by the window, flickering next to the picture of her and Jason at the county fair, circa 1989. The clock above the kitchen sink read 4:30 p.m. She checked her phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Nothing. She tapped Jason's name in her messages. The thread stretched back all week. Reminders, gentle nudges, a photo of the cake she'd picked up from Marla's bakery. Just wanted to make sure you've got the time right. 4 p.m. at the house. Can't wait to see you 3 read, Wednesday. No reply since. She pressed the home button. Still nothing. The cake sat on the sideboard under a glass dome, carrot with cream cheese frosting. Jason's favorite. Melissa said once she hated carrot cake, but Norma had added a second layer underneath. Vanilla bean. She'd even gotten it embossed with the words, "Welcome, little one," just in case they brought the baby. She didn't know if that would annoy Melissa. She hoped it wouldn't. The wind shifted outside, rustling the lake. The dock creaked like it always did when weather was turning. Norma walked to the window and looked out. The drive was still empty. No headlights? No car? No one. She went back to the table and straightened Melissa's name card, then Jason's. Then Melissa's again. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up fast. Too fast. Janice, 2:03 p.m. Want me to bring the cider or nah? Janice, 3:50 p.m. I'm free now if you want company. Janice, 4:31 p.m. You want me to come over? Norma stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Instead, she hit the call button. Hey, sweetie, Janice answered, voice warm and scratchy, like it always was in the late afternoon. So, did they show? Norma smiled, even though no one could see her. They'll be here. Janice paused. It's 4:30. I know, Norma said softly. But I told them 4 because they always run late. You know Jason. He was born running 10 minutes behind. Janice didn't laugh. I'll wait a little longer, Norma said quickly. Don't want the food to go cold. You sure? Yes, Norma said. She looked at the full table. They'll be here. All right, I'll stay near the phone, just in case you change your mind. Norma ended the call and sat at the head of the table. The candles flickered. One had started to drip. She reached to straighten it, and then paused. Her phone vibrated. Notification. One new post from Melissa Callahan. Norma's brow furrowed. She opened it. Her heart dropped. A photo. Melissa holding the baby in a hospital bed, smiling like she was on the cover of a magazine. Jason beside her, looking tired but proud. The caption read, Welcome to the world, Benjamin Elliott Callahan, born Sept 12th. 7 lbs, 6 Oz. Our hearts are so full, hundreds of likes already. Comments from friends and coworkers. Gorgeous family. That baby is perfection. When can we visit? Norma scrolled, eyes darting. No tag, no mention, not a word. She blinked. Her hand started to shake just slightly. She looked at the time again. 4:38 p.m. She stood up and walked to the kitchen sink, gripping the edge with both hands. The lake outside was still. Too still. Behind her, the candles kept burning. She didn't blow them out. Not yet. Norma stood motionless at the sink, the phone still in her hand. Her thumb rested against the screen like she was afraid to scroll again. The photo sat there, bright and smug. Melissa's manicured fingers cradling the baby with practiced tenderness. Jason's smile had that same quiet guilt it always carried now. A man choosing the easier room to stand in. The caption blurred in Norma's vision as her breath caught. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. He was here. Born 2 days ago. And no one had told her. Not a call. Not a message. Not a whispered heads up. She hadn't even known Melissa had gone into labor. Her hand trembled. She lowered the phone onto the counter carefully as if it might explode. Then, slowly, like dragging herself back into the room, she picked it up again. Opened a new message. To Jason. Is everything okay? Just saw the post. Sending love. Let me know if you need anything. She stared at the blinking cursor. For a long time. Then hit send. The message marked as delivered. Not read. Norma pressed her palm flat to her chest, as if calming the flutter beneath her ribs might help keep the silence from expanding. She walked back to the table. The cake sat untouched, frosting slightly melting under the glass dome. One of the balloons had deflated halfway, its string slack and coiled like a snake on the floor. She sat again, more slowly this time, as if her age had caught up to her all at once. The clock ticked in the kitchen. Tick, tick, tick. Then, 3 quick knocks. Norma blinked. She stood and went to the door, hope flickering despite herself. But it wasn't Jason. It was Janice. Raincoat unbuttoned, a bottle of hard cider tucked under one arm and a plastic grocery bag swinging from the other. You didn't think I was going to let you drink that ginger ale alone, did you? Janice stepped inside without waiting for an answer. She scanned the room quickly, candles still burning, table still set, air thick with something unspoken. Still no word? She asked, voice low. Norma just shook her head, then held up her phone. I saw this a few minutes ago. Janice stepped closer, read the caption, saw the photo. Her mouth flattened into a grim line. No tag? Norma shook her head. Janice let out a breath like steam from a boiling pot. They had that baby 2 days ago? Apparently. And you found out through Instagram? Norma nodded. Jesus Christ, Janice muttered, setting the cider on the counter with a solid thunk. Do you want me to start flipping furniture? I'll flip furniture. Norma gave a soft, tired laugh, but it didn't last. Her gaze drifted back to the table. They named him Benjamin Elliot. It's a good name, Janice said. Doesn't mean they earned the right to give it. Norma sat again, hands folded in her lap. I thought maybe it was just timing, that they were on their way, that they wanted to surprise me. Janice sat across from her. No, honey, you don't surprise a mother with silence. Norma swallowed hard. I just wanted to hold him once. Just once. Janice reached over and touched her hand. Then we do it our way, she said gently. No more waiting at windows. Norma looked out the glass at the lake again. It had gone gray, heavy. I don't even know what I did, she whispered. Janice didn't answer. Because maybe there was no reason. No crime. Just cruelty, disguised as preference. After a while, Norma stood and began clearing the table. One plate at a time, folding the name cards, blowing out the candles. I should have known when Melissa said I could visit after the dust settles. Janice looked up. When was that? Last month. Janice sat back, lips pressing into a thin line. You got played. Norm, I know. As Norma reached for the baby card, the one that said, "Welcome, little one," her phone buzzed on the counter. She turned fast. It wasn't Jason. It was Becky Lee. Hey, Norma. I know this might be weird, but were you supposed to be at the baby shower? I heard something you should probably know. Norma froze, and for the first time all day, she felt something colder than disappointment. The dashboard clock blinked 7:12 p.m. as Norma pulled into the hospital's south parking lot. The sky above Cedar Grove was an unsettling shade of violet, too pretty for how cold her stomach felt. She hadn't told Janice she was coming. She hadn't told anyone. The hospital's automatic doors whooshed open, letting in the scent of disinfectant and overwatered lobby plants. The woman behind the front desk wore a badge that said Molly, and her voice was pleasant but detached. Hi, I was hoping to visit the maternity ward, Norma said, trying to steady her voice. My son's wife had a baby this week. Benjamin Callahan. Molly typed something into her terminal, then tilted her head. And your name, ma'am? Norma Callahan, I'm the... She hesitated. The baby's grandmother. Molly offered a sympathetic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Let me just check the visitor log. She clicked through several screens, eyes scanning, then stopped. I'm sorry. Only names on the approved list can go upstairs. It looks like you're not on it. Norma blinked. I'm not... No, Molly said gently. I'm sorry. The word echoed. Like being disinvited twice, once in silence, once in policy. Norma stepped back, heat rushing to her cheeks. She nodded as if she understood, though she didn't. Not really. Of course, she said quietly. I'll head out. The elevator chimed nearby. Two new grandparents stepped off, matching sweatshirts that said first-time grandma and proud pop-pop. They were carrying balloons. Norma turned fast, walking out before she saw their faces. The air outside had gone colder. She reached her car, slid into the driver's seat, and gripped the steering wheel like it might float away if she didn't anchor it. She didn't cry. Not yet. But her throat ached like she had. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. Janice. They threw a baby shower at Becky's cafe last week. Did you know? Norma's hands went still. She stared at the message. Then, without thinking, she typed. No, I didn't. The three little dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Janice. Melissa's sister posted about it. I just saw it now. There's pictures. Norma didn't respond. She dropped her head back against the seat, closed her eyes. A baby shower, a birth, a Facebook post, and somehow, not a single word for her. Was it all at once? Or had this been happening in slow motion, like dust settling on furniture while you weren't looking? She didn't know. She wasn't sure she wanted to. Another buzz. Becky Lee. If you're free tomorrow morning, I can talk. I was working the shower. Something didn't sit right. Norma stared at the screen. Didn't sit right. She reached for the gear shift, but her hand paused. Across the lot, through the hospital's wide glass doors, a young couple was stepping out, bundled in jackets, cooing down at a swaddled newborn. They looked exhausted, happy, whole. Norma looked away. Then, with deliberate care, she shifted into reverse. The tires rolled slowly out of the lot. She didn't look back, but her hands stayed tight on the wheel all the way home. And she didn't put the radio on. Back at the house, the table was still cleared. The cake was still untouched. Norma walked straight to her bedroom, sat at the edge of the bed, and opened her phone again. She clicked Melissa's profile, scrolled. There it was. A carousel of photos from the shower. Pink streamer arch. cupcakes with the baby's initials. Melissa in a floral dress beaming. Jason beside her, glass in hand, his smile stretched too wide. In one of the shots, Becky could be seen in the background, arms crossed, looking toward the door, toward something, or someone. Norma's thumb hovered. Then her eyes landed on the caption, "Thank you to everyone who helped make this day perfect. We are so lucky to be surrounded by the right people." Norma's chest went tight. She closed the app, and for the first time since she'd walked out of that hospital, she let herself cry, but only for a moment. Because by the time she wiped her face and stood, something new had settled in. Not grief, not confusion. Resolve. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as Norma stepped inside. It was just after 8, early enough that the pastries still steamed behind the glass and the scent of espresso hadn't yet given way to burnt milk and chatter. Becky looked up from behind the counter, her dark hair pulled into a loose bun, apron dusted with flour. Her expression shifted the second she saw Norma, something between recognition and quiet dread. "I saved you a seat," she said gently, motioning toward a corner booth. Norma walked slowly, the stiffness in her knees worse than usual after a night of almost no sleep. She sat on the vinyl bench, rested her hands on the table, and waited. Becky joined her a minute later with 2 mugs. No cream, no sugar. Just coffee. Strong, black, and needed. Norma wrapped her fingers around the warm cup but didn't lift it. "I appreciate you reaching out," she said finally. Becky nodded. "I wasn't sure if I should, but after what I heard..." She trailed off, then pulled her phone from her apron pocket and laid it on the table. The screen was already open to a photo album titled Shower, September 3rd. Norma's breath caught. She took the phone with steady hands, swiped through the images. Melissa posing in front of a wall of paper flowers. Jason off to the side, holding a drink, not smiling. Cupcakes, pink lemonade, a diaper cake in the middle of the buffet table. And guests. So many guests. All grinning like they'd been invited to something pure. Norma was nowhere. Not a mention. Not a trace. Becky spoke softly like she didn't want to startle her. They booked out the whole cafe for it. Said it was just for family and day ones. That's what Melissa called it. Norma looked up, a hollow sound in her throat. Day ones. Becky leaned in slightly, voice lower now. "I didn't know who you were until later, but I overheard something. Near the end, when people were leaving." Norma's hands went still. She was talking to someone. I think it was her sister. They were laughing about keeping the guest list small, and then she said... Becky hesitated. Norma didn't blink. "Tell me." Becky nodded. She said, "She doesn't need to be part of our story. It's cleaner this way." Norma sat very still. The mug of coffee was cooling beside her, untouched. Becky added, "Jason didn't say much. Just followed her around, nodding. I don't think he wanted to make a scene." "Of course he didn't." Norma handed the phone back and stood slowly. Her joints popped with the motion. Becky looked uncertain. "Are you okay?" Norma smiled, thin and sad. "No, but thank you for asking." She reached into her bag, pulled out a crumpled napkin with a phone number scrawled on it. "Would you mind texting those photos to this number? It's my lawyer." Becky blinked. "Your lawyer?" Norma's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Melissa thinks I don't belong in the story." She reached for her coat. "I'm about to rewrite the ending." Outside, the wind had picked up. It whipped across the lake as Norma sat in her car, hands trembling slightly against the steering wheel. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts until she found the name, Claire Benton, Family Law. She pressed call. Claire answered on the second ring. "Norma? Everything all right?" "No," Norma said calmly, "but I know what I want to do." Silence on the other end. Then Claire asked, "Do you want to come in today?" "I do." Norma stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her lipstick had faded. Her eyes were tired. But behind all of it, something steel. "I want to talk about my will." Claire didn't hesitate. "I'll clear my afternoon." Norma ended the call. She sat in the silence of the parked car for a beat, then reached into the passenger seat for the one thing Melissa had given her, a small gift bag from the baby shower, unopened. She untied the ribbon. Inside, nestled in pink tissue, was a scented candle with a tag that read, "Thanks for being part of our beginning." Norma lit it with the car's emergency lighter, watched it burn, then rolled down the window and let the wind take it. Claire's office smelled like fresh ink and eucalyptus. An odd combination, but oddly comforting. The building was one of those remodeled Victorians near the courthouse square, all creaky floorboards and sun-faded woodwork. A pot of weak coffee hissed behind the receptionist's desk. Norma stood in the doorway for a second longer than she meant to. Claire looked up from her monitor, brow lifting in quiet recognition. "You look like a woman who's made up her mind," she said, rising. Norma gave a tight smile. "Funny." "That's exactly how I feel." Claire gestured toward the leather chairs beside her desk. "Let's sit." Norma lowered herself slowly into the seat, her bag resting on her lap like a shield. Claire pulled out a folder from the file cabinet behind her. Blue-tabbed, thick, organized down to the page. "Your last full estate update was in 2018, Claire began. "Jason and Melissa are currently listed as sole beneficiaries of all financial accounts, property, and life insurance assets. Standard language, nothing exotic. You'd left them equal control as executors." Norma nodded slowly, the words like airless facts circling a truth she'd never questioned. Claire flipped another page. "There's also a secondary clause. Education trust for any grandchildren. Medical directive authority to Jason. I can walk you through each piece if you want to keep any of it intact." Norma didn't answer right away. She looked out the window instead, where a thin-leafed tree shook in the wind like it was shivering. "I did everything right," she said, voice low. "All those years. Birthdays. Helping with the mortgage that one winter. Watching their dog every time they left town. And now I'm a ghost in my own bloodline." Claire closed the file softly. "You don't need to justify anything to me." "I'm not," Norma said. "I'm just trying to understand how I spent 50 years building a house and still got locked out of it." She turned back to Claire. Her voice was steadier now, cooler. "I want to change everything." Claire didn't blink. "Do you know what you want instead?" "I do." Norma opened her bag and pulled out a folded sheet of notebook paper. Not typed. Not formal. Just a list in her own handwriting. Claire took it, read for a moment, then nodded. "I can draft these changes and have them ready to sign this week. We'll need 2 witnesses. Not a problem." Norma leaned back in the chair. "Make sure it's airtight. No loopholes. I want it to be clearer than the damn hospital visitor list." Claire smiled faintly. "It will be." She reached for her keyboard, began typing with calm efficiency. "Do you want them notified when it's done?" "No," Norma said sharply. "Let them find out the way I did." A long pause. Then Claire asked without looking up, "Are you ready for what that might cost?" Norma exhaled through her nose. "I already paid for it, with every silence they gave me." Claire stopped typing. "Then let's begin." An hour later, Norma stepped out into the crisp Wisconsin air, file in hand. The wind had picked up, pushing curls of dried leaves along the sidewalk like tiny, fleeing secrets. She didn't go straight to her car. Instead, she walked a block west to the little shop tucked behind the courthouse, a framing store she used once for Jason's graduation portrait. She stepped inside, browsed for 5 minutes, and bought a new shadow box. Back home, she opened the hallway closet. dug through the stacked Rubbermaids and photo albums until she found what she was looking for. Her father's fishing knife, a pair of Jason's baby shoes, and a photo, faded and curled, of her holding Jason as a newborn, both of them bathed in hospital light. She arranged them inside the box carefully, deliberately, then mounted it in the hallway, where the wedding photo had once hung. She stepped back and stared at it. It didn't look like a shrine. It looked like an answer. Meanwhile, miles away, in a bright open-concept kitchen with white marble counters, Melissa Callahan was holding a glass of wine and scrolling through emails. She paused on one. From Claire Benton. Subject: Notice of estate alteration. Filing confirmation. Melissa frowned, clicked it. As she read, the color drained from her face. She turned to Jason, who was rocking the baby in the next room. "Did you know about this?" she asked. He looked up, clueless. "About what?" Melissa's hand clenched the glass. She changed the will. And just like that, Melissa realized she wasn't in control anymore. The wind had quieted by the time Norma returned to Claire's office later that week. The leaves no longer scattered. They gathered in thick drifts along the sidewalk, huddling like secrets in the corners. Claire was waiting with a stack of final documents, already tabbed and ready for signature. Her posture was calm, but her eyes held a weight. 1 part concern, 2 parts respect. "Once you sign," Claire said gently, "it's official. Executable within 30 days. Revocable only by you." Norma nodded. "I brought my own pen." She slid a sleek silver ballpoint from her coat pocket and clicked it once, firmly, like a starting pistol. Each signature felt less like a task and more like a lit match. Jason's name, struck through. Melissa's, removed entirely. The medical directive reassigned to Claire's office, the education trust redirected, and in their place, Janice Margaret Cole and the Cedar Grove Literacy Initiative, both listed as primary beneficiaries and co-executors. Norma didn't hesitate. She signed with a steady hand and sharper heart. Claire notarized the final page, pressed the seal into the thick paper, and looked up. "It's done." Norma gave a small nod, then stood. "Good." Claire closed the folder slowly. "Are you sure you don't want to leave them something? A letter at least?" "I already gave them more than enough," Norma said. "They chose the inheritance they wanted. Attention, approval, image. They can keep that. I'll keep the rest." Claire didn't argue. Back at the cottage, the hallway had begun to feel too crowded with ghosts. Norma stood in front of the gallery wall, years of family photos, layered over time like wallpaper. Jason's third-grade class picture, their 2005 Thanksgiving at Lake Superior, his wedding, Melissa's ultrasound. She stared at them for a long time. Then she began to take them down, one frame at a time. The glass clinked softly as she stacked them on the table. No tears, no rage. Just the quiet kind of grief that comes with letting go of a lie you helped maintain. When she reached the last photo, Jason holding up a fish on the dock, grinning at age 11, she paused. Then turned it face down. An hour later, the wall was bare. Norma stood on a step stool, leveling a new frame in its place. Inside was a wide oil painting of Lake Geneva. Stormy, unfiltered, breathtaking. Something she'd bought from a second-hand gallery years ago, but never hung. She secured it to the wall, then stepped back, dusted off her hands. There, not history, not legacy, just peace. Down the street, Janice was elbow-deep in pie crust when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find a courier standing in the cold, holding a padded envelope. "For Ms. Janice Cole," the man said. "From Claire Benton, attorney at law." Janice signed, took the envelope, and ripped it open with a butter knife. Inside was a short letter and a sealed copy of Norma's revised estate plan. The note read, "To my oldest friend and truest mirror, thank you for telling me the truth, even when it hurt. You reminded me what real family looks like. Love always, Norma." Janice read it twice, then sat down on her couch, speechless for the first time in years. That night, in the Callahan home, Melissa paced the living room with her laptop open. She'd reread the email from Claire half a dozen times, searching for a loophole. Jason sat on the couch, silent, bouncing the baby lightly on his knee. "She can't do this," Melissa said for the 5th time. "She did," Jason murmured. Melissa snapped her head toward him. "Then fix it." Jason looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in days. "She's not the one who needs fixing," he said quietly. Melissa's jaw clenched. "So you're choosing her now?" Jason didn't answer, because for once, he wasn't sure who had chosen who. Back at the cottage, Norma lit the fireplace and curled into her favorite chair with a mug of peppermint tea. Outside, snow had begun to fall, light and aimless. Her phone buzzed on the end table. A new message. From unknown number. "Hey, it's Melissa. Can we talk? Just you and me. No lawyers. No Janice. I think we need to clear the air." Norma stared at it, then typed back, "We'll see." But she didn't hit send. She just let the message sit there. Unsent. Unread. Exactly where it belonged. Norma saw the silver SUV before it turned fully into the drive. The engine was still running when it paused halfway up the gravel, headlights slicing through the bare trees like they didn't belong there. She didn't move from the kitchen window, just watched. Jason stepped out first, wearing that old puffer coat she'd bought him back in '08, the one he used to say was too Midwest dad for his taste. Melissa exited from the passenger side with military precision, baby carrier in one hand, oversized tote in the other. They stood by the car for a moment, murmuring something she couldn't hear. Then Jason took the carrier. Melissa adjusted her scarf. They walked toward the house. Norma was already in the foyer when the knock came. She waited 2 full seconds before opening the door. "Hey, Mom," Jason said, voice too upbeat. "Cold out today." Norma smiled softly. "That's Wisconsin for you." Melissa stepped in behind him, cheeks flushed from the wind. We thought we'd drop by. Just a quick visit." Norma nodded once. "Of course, come in." She led them into the living room, where a fire crackled quietly and 2 mugs of tea already steamed on the table, one for her and one that would remain untouched. Jason set the baby carrier gently on the rug, unlatched the cover flap. "Meet Benjamin," he said, his voice lowering a bit. 7 pounds of very selective sleep. Norma leaned down just enough to see the baby's face. His eyes were closed, peaceful, his fists curled near his cheeks like he was dreaming something worth keeping. "He's beautiful," Norma said. It wasn't a performance. It was just true. Melissa stepped closer. "Would you like to hold him?" Norma straightened slowly, her hands clasped in front of her. "Not right now." Melissa blinked. "Sorry?" Norma's tone remained pleasant, unshaken. "I said, not right now." Jason shifted his weight. "You okay, Mom?" Norma turned to him. "I'm fine, just not interested in pretending this is something it's not." He let out a short, awkward laugh. "Well, that's dramatic." Melissa's smile was brittle. "We're trying here, Norma. We thought a visit would be nice. A reset." Norma looked between them, her son, with his half-apologetic shoulders, and Melissa, who'd already scanned the room 3 times like she was checking for witnesses. "I appreciate the effort," Norma said, moving to sit in her chair. "But you don't get to reset when you haven't even acknowledged the damage." Jason opened his mouth, closed it. Melissa stepped forward again, tone sweetened artificially. "Norma, we understand you're upset. Upset. Norma tilted her head. Melissa, I buried my own birthday cake, alone. I stood outside your hospital room like a stranger. I had to learn from a barista that I wasn't part of the story. So no, upset doesn't quite cover it. Melissa's face twitched. She shifted the baby bag onto her other shoulder. Jason sat down on the edge of the couch, elbows on knees. We didn't mean for things to escalate. We were overwhelmed. The baby came early. We didn't plan for... You didn't plan for me. Norma cut in gently. That part's clear. The room filled with silence. Not heavy, just honest. Melissa adjusted the baby's hat, though it didn't need adjusting. Well, she said stiffly, I suppose we should go? Jason didn't move. You sure you don't want to hold him? Just for a minute? Norma looked at the baby again. Her grandson, tiny, unaware of the battleground he'd been born into. I'll hold him when it means something, she said. Not as a prop in someone's apology. Jason stood slowly. Melissa was already halfway to the door. As they walked out, Norma followed, her hands still folded neatly. Melissa paused at the threshold, turning to look at her one last time. You're going to regret this. Norma met her gaze without flinching. You're confusing me with someone who's still afraid of being alone. Melissa's lips parted, but no words came. She turned, brisk and silent, and got into the SUV. Jason buckled the baby in with careful hands, then closed the door. He glanced back at Norma one last time, hesitant, tired, but she was already closing the front door. Inside, the fire had burned down to glowing embers. Norma picked up her phone. One new voicemail. Claire Benton. Just a heads up. Something interesting just came across my desk. You might want to stop by tomorrow. Norma deleted the voicemail and smiled. The next morning, the lake was silver and glassy, so still it looked like it hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to reflect. Norma stepped onto her porch with a coat draped over her shoulders, a thermos of coffee in hand, and no expectations. So when Jason's car rolled up again, alone this time, she didn't move, didn't call out, just waited. He got out slowly, rubbing the back of his neck like a teenager walking into a parent-teacher conference. He wore a hoodie and jeans. His shoes looked like they'd been put on in a rush. Can we talk? He asked from the steps. Norma took a slow sip from the thermos. You're already here. Jason climbed the steps, hands in his pockets. Melissa's at her sister's, with the baby. Norma said nothing, just nodded toward the porch chair across from her. He sat, exhaled. For a moment, all they heard were the distant calls of geese and the creak of the dock swaying ever so slightly. I know yesterday didn't go the way we hoped, Jason said finally. We didn't hope the same thing, Norma replied. Jason winced, rubbed his palms together. It was a misunderstanding. The hospital, things got complicated. Norma turned to look at him directly. Which part? The birthday you forgot? The baby I found out about from a social media caption? Or the shower you hosted in a cafe I frequent weekly? Jason opened his mouth, then closed it again. Norma set the thermos down. Let's stop pretending this is about confusion. It's about convenience. You were protecting Melissa from discomfort. And me from involvement. Jason's face flushed. It wasn't malicious. We were overwhelmed. She was exhausted. You made space for everyone but me, Norma interrupted, her voice still calm. Friends, co-workers, extended family. You had time to decorate cupcakes. You had time to write thank you tags. You just didn't have time to call your mother. Jason looked at the floorboards beneath his feet. Norma leaned back, hands folded in her lap. You made me invisible in my own story. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? Jason's throat bobbed, his voice barely audible. I didn't think it would hurt you like that. Norma almost smiled at that. Almost. You were raised by a woman who taught 4-year-olds how to apologize with sincerity. Don't tell me you don't know what pain looks like. He looked up, eyes watery now. I didn't want this. But you stood beside it, Norma said. Again. And again. He wiped a hand over his mouth. Melissa's, she has her reasons. And I have mine, Norma said, sharp enough to cut. I let her shape your silence for too long. I let you avoid me under the name of peacekeeping. But peace that silences one party is just control with better manners. Jason blinked. You think I'm weak? Norma shook her head. I think you're scared. And I know what fear does when it's left in charge too long. It turns love into obligation, then into resentment, then into indifference. Jason looked at her then. Really looked. And for the first time in years, he didn't see his mother as the passive shadow at family events, holding plates and swallowing slights with tight smiles. He saw her now, steel-lined, unflinching, awake. She's furious, he muttered, about the will. I'm sure, Norma said. Fury usually follows entitlement. Jason ran a hand through his hair. She says you're punishing the baby. Norma's voice softened, just slightly. No, I'm protecting myself. And one day, if Benjamin wants to know who I was, I'll tell him everything. With receipts. Jason stood slowly. He looked older than he had yesterday. I don't know what to say, he murmured. You already did, Norma said. With your silence. He nodded like a man stepping into water too deep for swimming. I guess I'll see you. Eventually, she said. He made it down the steps halfway to the car. Then he turned. Mom? She looked up. Do you still have that photo of me on the dock? Holding the fish? Norma paused. Yes, she said. But I took it down. Jason nodded and drove away. That night, Melissa opened her messages and found one from Jason. We had the talk. She's not bending. Melissa's reply was instant. Then we'll make her. And beneath that, a new file attachment. One Norma hadn't seen yet, but it was coming. 2 mornings later, the package arrived. It was perched neatly on Norma's porch bench when she opened the door, a white wicker basket wrapped in cellophane and tied with a navy ribbon that matched her porch cushions. No delivery slip, no return address. But she knew. Of course, she knew. She brought it inside without ceremony, set it on the kitchen table like something that might rot if ignored. The note was tucked under the ribbon, handwritten in looping script on ivory cardstock. We hope you'll forgive us, Jason and Melissa. Hope. Not we're sorry. Not we were wrong. Just hope. Wrapped in passive softness. Norma pulled the cellophane apart with deliberate care. No tearing, no drama. Inside was a hand-stitched baby blanket, pale yellow, soft enough to make her chest ache. Beneath it, a framed black and white ultrasound photo. She stared at it for a long time, Benjamin's little spine curled like a comma, his profile impossibly familiar. And tucked beneath that, a lavender-scented candle and a bottle of rosé, the label reading, "Something worth toasting." Norma stared at the basket for a full minute, then stood, walked to the back closet, and pulled down an old cardboard box she'd used last fall to collect books for the local women's shelter. One by one, she placed the items inside. The blanket, the candle, the wine, even the note. The ultrasound frame she held for just a beat longer. Then she set it face down in the box. By the time she arrived at Janice's house, the wind had picked up again. Leaves chased her ankles as she climbed the porch steps. Janice opened the door before she could knock. I was hoping you'd show. I've got stew on. Norma held up the box. Got something for the donation bin. Janice stepped aside with a grin. Oh, this ought to be good. They set the box on the kitchen table. Janice peered inside, then gave a low whistle. Well, Damn, this looks expensive. Manipulation usually is, Norma said, unbothered. Janice picked up the wine and read the label aloud. Something worth toasting. She snorted. What do we toast to? Public shaming and curated remorse. Norma smiled, a tired one, but real. We toast to dodging a bullet in knitwear. Janice barked a laugh. Damn right we do. She pulled 2 mugs from the cupboard, poured the stew into deep bowls, and set a small basket of warm bread between them. They sat at the table, the box of regret still between them like an uninvited guest. After a few bites, Janice leaned back, chewing thoughtfully. You think this is Melissa trying to save face? Norma didn't answer at first. She stirred her spoon, watching the potatoes roll in the broth. No, she said finally. I think it's the opening volley. Janice raised an eyebrow. That subtle? Norma reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, swiped to the screenshot Claire had sent her that morning. A legal notice. Filed discreetly by a firm in Milwaukee. Petition for preemptive custodial review. Re. Benjamin Elliott Callahan. Janice read it twice, her expression hardening with each line. Oh, hell no. They're trying to argue, Norma said slowly, that I've created an emotionally hostile environment, unfit for visitation. Janice slammed her palm on the table. They've got nerve. I'll give 'em that. Norma's voice was quieter now. They're building a case, starting small. Guilt gifts, legal feelers. They want the story to be that I'm unstable, vengeful. Janice shook her head, seething. We should have burned that blanket. Norma's lips curved into something sharper than a smile. We still can. Later that night, after Norma returned home, she opened the baby album she'd kept since 1980. Not for nostalgia, for evidence. Each page was like a courtroom record. Dates, doctor visits, milestones, newspaper clippings from Jason's first kindergarten play. She pulled 3 out and scanned them, emailing them to Claire with a single subject line, documented, always. Her phone buzzed 10 minutes later. Claire. Got them. And by the way, call me tomorrow. Something else just surfaced, and it's big. Norma stared at the message. The gift basket still sat on the porch, rain beginning to tap against its glossy cellophane. She didn't bring it in. She left it for the storm. Norma sat at the kitchen table with the baby album still open beside her, the scent of dust and old glue rising faintly from the pages. Her phone lay face down near the edge, silent, but not forgotten. Claire's message echoed in her mind. Something else just surfaced, and it's big. She flipped the phone over and opened the attachment Claire had sent 5 minutes earlier. A file labeled simply Callahan Cafe, audio.m4a. She hesitated only a second before pressing play. At first, there was background noise, silverware clinking, the soft hiss of espresso, light jazz bleeding in from overhead speakers. Then came the voice. Melissa's. I mean, come on. She had candles. Candles. Like we were all gonna march in with party hats and a bassinet. Laughter, sharp and breathy. She even had name cards. Jason. I cannot. Norma blinked slowly. Another voice, Jason's, chimed in, lower and slightly muffled. She's always been that way. Trying to stage manage emotion. Makes everything a damn Hallmark scene. Melissa snorted. It's manipulative. That sob story birthday? Please. Like guilt-tripping us earns her grandparent privileges. She's exhausting, Jason said, and she knows exactly what she's doing. The voices drifted in and out as they talked about the shower, their image, how Melissa didn't want some dusty cottage narrative attached to their new life. Norma didn't move, didn't breathe. She sat frozen as the audio wound down, the final words landing with surgical cruelty. Melissa again. She doesn't belong in our family. She just raised one. The file clicked off. Norma stared out the window, eyes dry and unblinking. Outside, the porch creaked under the wind, that useless gift basket still shrouded in rain-glossed cellophane. She hit replay and listened again, slower this time, taking in every syllable like evidence at trial. When the file ended a second time, she rose from the table with unnerving calm, poured herself 2 fingers of bourbon into a ceramic mug, and sat back down. Then she attached the file to a new email. To Claire Benton, CC, Janice Cole. Subject, confirmation. No text in the body, just the audio file. She hit send. Then she waited. Exactly 4 minutes later, Janice's reply came through. Subject, Jesus H. Christ body. She said that? She actually said that? If you want me to post this in every PTA Facebook group within 60 miles, I will. I've got nothing but time and rage. Norma smiled softly. Then Claire's reply pinged in. Subject, hold on to this body. Norma, if this leaks, it'll set their entire social orbit on fire. Jason could lose client trust. Melissa would be radioactive in any local organization. It's powerful and dangerous. Norma tapped her fingers against the edge of the mug. Her house felt quieter than it had in days, like even the walls were holding their breath. She stood, phone still in hand, and walked into her study. Pulled open the top drawer of the desk she used mostly for writing birthday cards. No one answered. She opened a hidden folder on her laptop, named it Unopened Boxes, dragged the file in, labeled it Recording. Sept 3, Becky's Cafe, raw audio. Then, just below it, she started a Word doc. Timeline of exclusion. 1, August, unreturned texts. 2, Sept 3, shower, no invite, documented. 3, Sept 12, birth, no notice, Instagram only. 4, Sept 14, hospital visit denied. 5, Sept 16, gift basket, plus, legal filing. 6, Sept 18, audio evidence, defamation, plus, targeted character slander. She paused, then added a title to the top of the doc, If it comes to court. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Claire. Do you want to use this? Publicly? Or just keep it as leverage? Norma stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. Let's wait. She didn't send it right away. Instead, she went to the front door. Opened it. Took the soaking gift basket in both hands and walked it straight out to the fire pit. She didn't bother unwrapping it. She lit a match. Dropped it in. Watched it burn. All of it. When the last of the ribbon curled black, she whispered aloud. Not to anyone. Not for anyone. Just to the night. They said I was exhausting. She turned back toward the house. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a new number. Melissa. Please tell me you didn't listen to that. Norma didn't reply. Not yet. But tomorrow, maybe, she'd let Melissa know. The difference between being underestimated and being unafraid. Norma let the phone ring. Once, twice, then again, and again. She didn't silence it, just watched the screen from across the kitchen as Jason Callahan lit up the display like a mosquito banging against glass. Voicemail after voicemail stacked like junk mail in her inbox. She didn't open them, didn't need to. They all probably said the same thing, or worse, said nothing, and expected her to fill in the blanks. She poured her coffee, black and hot, and moved to the front window. The lake was gray today, unimpressed. Like it, too, had heard enough apologies with no action. The phone rang again. Norma reached over, picked it up, and calmly powered it off. 3 hours later, the first notification came from Janice. Jay, you seen Melissa's latest? Norma didn't respond. Just clicked the link Janice included and let Instagram load slowly like it was daring her to look. The post was fresh, just 10 minutes old, already had 214 likes and climbing. The photo. Melissa in a cream cable knit sweater, holding Benjamin like a prop in a holiday catalog. Jason stood beside her in chinos and forced ease, his arm wrapped behind her back. And in the middle, between them, was a woman. Tall, blonde, maybe in her 60s, wearing a red plaid scarf and a smile so wide it hurt to look at. The caption read, "3 generations, 1 love. Blessed beyond measure. Cas family first. Benjamin Elliott." Norma didn't blink. She scrolled to the comments. Most were the usual flurry. A Krista loves tea. Beautiful. A JBro28. What a legacy. Mama Squad XO? Okay. Wow, that baby is an angel. Then someone else chimed in. Beneath a heart emoji, a Melissa, Callahan fan. Is that your mom or Jason's? Norma stared at that question for a long time. Then, for the first time in weeks, she clicked comment. Her fingers didn't shake. Enorma.Callahan. I didn't take that picture. Must be a different grandmother. She hit post and waited. The algorithm worked faster than guilt. Within minutes, the comment was pushed to the top of the thread, liked by over a dozen people who had no idea what they were liking, at first. Then came the replies. Lizzie McBride. Wait, what? A real talk sauce to Emily. The grandmother wasn't there? Hi's bookworm Lauren. I thought this was Jason's mom? Bree writes. Girl. You better clarify this before it gets messy. Melissa didn't respond. She just edited the caption. Now it read, grateful for chosen family. But it was too late. The original caption had already been screenshotted, shared, and reposted on a local parenting group page, titled Cedar Grove, Mamas and More, a place where judgment was currency and tea got poured hourly. Norma sat back and watched it unfold like someone who'd seen the play before and had already guessed the ending. The phone rang again. Voicemail, then a text. Jason, please, just call me. We didn't mean to erase you. It's all gotten out of hand. Norma stared at the text, then opened her voice memos app. She recorded just 5 words. Not loud, not cruel, just clear. She saved the file, then attached it, sent it to Jason. A single message. No caption, just the voice recording. You let her borrow your spine. Across town, in their perfectly lit living room, Jason stared at the screen like it had just slapped him. Melissa hovered behind the couch, clutching the baby monitor with white knuckles. You think she'll go public? Melissa asked, her voice brittle. Jason didn't answer, because now he wasn't sure what Norma was capable of, and deep down, that terrified him more than anything. Back at the cottage, Norma opened a new email to Claire. Subject, just for the record body. If they try to respond publicly, I want a strategy ready. It's about to get theatrical. Her finger hovered over send, then stopped. A new email came in. From media@cedargrovetimes.com. Subject, request for comment. Callahan family drama goes viral. Norma's jaw tightened. She hadn't even stepped onto the stage, but the spotlight had already found her. And this time, she wasn't walking away. Norma stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. The online support group wasn't fancy, just a gray and blue message board for lakefront women over 50, tucked into a quiet corner of the internet like a booth at a tired diner. Nothing flashy, no filters, no sponsorships. Just names, stories, and late-night venting from women who'd seen some shit and were finally tired of pretending they hadn't. She hadn't posted before, just lurked. Until tonight. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The house was quiet, except for the lake groaning against the rocks outside like an old man shifting in bed. Then, without ceremony, she began to type. My name is Norma Callahan. I'm 63. My son and his wife staged a holiday family photo last weekend. It went viral. I wasn't in it. Not because I couldn't be, because I wasn't wanted. The words came faster than she expected. Not angry, just deliberate. Like someone finally setting down the weight they'd been told to carry in silence. She didn't make it poetic, didn't clean up the details. She included the canceled birthday dinner, the silence that followed, the red plaid scarf, even the caption. She ended it with, "They say blood is thicker than water. But right now, the lake outside my window feels more honest than most people I've bled for." She hit post, closed the laptop, and exhaled. By morning, it had over 200 responses. A woman named Kelly, from Michigan, had commented first. "My daughter-in-law told my grandkids I was too negative to be around on Christmas. I spent it watching Wheel of Fortune reruns with a microwave dinner." Then Denise, in Colorado. "They made a separate group chat and left me out. I only found out about my granddaughter's baptism from Facebook. You're not alone." The replies kept coming. From Montana, from Vermont, from Arizona. One woman had been deliberately cropped out of her grandson's birthday photos. Another said her family moved away and didn't tell her until they'd been gone 2 weeks. Norma read them all, every single one, with a strange cocktail of ache and warmth swirling in her chest. Not happy, not exactly comforted, but seen. She made tea, sat at the window again, let the steam kiss her cheek while her phone buzzed endlessly with follow-up replies. By noon, a screenshot of her post had made its way onto a much larger Facebook group. Second acts and silverbacks, women rewriting the rules after 50. That's when things snowballed. She received a DM from a woman named Tracy O'Hara, a lifestyle blogger with a podcast called 50 and Fed Up. The message was short. "Norma, I saw your post. Would you consider coming on the podcast? Your story hit me right in the ribs. People need to hear this." Norma blinked at the screen. She wasn't a talker. Not like that. But maybe it was time. Before she could respond, a notification pinged from Cedar Grove Mamas and More, the parenting group that had already dissected the family photo like it was a cold case. Someone had reposted her original message with the headline, "Elderly birthday left behind, one local woman speaks out." There were comments, hundreds, most supportive, a few skeptical. But the needle had moved. The narrative wasn't Melissa's anymore, or Jason's. The story had cracked open, and Norma hadn't even needed to shout. Just tell the truth. She finally replied to Tracy, "Let's talk. I have more to say." Later that night, Janice came by. She didn't knock, just walked in with 2 bags of groceries and a 6-pack of lemon seltzer. "I figured you weren't gonna eat," she said, setting everything down like it was an intervention. "But also, I saw the post. Girl, you went public." Norma raised an eyebrow. "Was I supposed to stay private? Let them keep the only microphone?" Janice grinned. "Hell no. I just didn't know you had it in you." Norma sipped her tea. "Neither did I." They sat in silence for a bit. Then Janice added, "Claire texted me. Said the Callahans have gone into lockdown. No new posts? No updates?" Melissa's account went private. Norma didn't flinch. "They'll surface," she said. "They always do." She turned back toward the window. The lake was dark now, but not quiet. Not still. A storm was building, and Norma, finally, was ready for it. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Voicemail. She almost ignored it. But this time, something nudged her. She played the message. A woman's voice, trembling but sharp. "Norma Callahan? You don't know me, but I know Melissa. From before Jason. You're not the only one she's erased. And I have proof." Norma froze, then hit save. The screen glowed in the dark like a warning flare. She stared at it, pulse steady, then whispered to herself, "Now we're getting somewhere." The first kid showed up in a Spider-Man hoodie and boots 2 sizes too big. His name was Teddy. 4.5. Wouldn't speak unless he was holding his plush velociraptor, and even then, only in dinosaur noises. His grandmother, Karen, stood on the porch with a foil-covered tray of lemon bars and eyes that looked like they hadn't rested in years. "I heard what you posted," she said softly, handing Norma the tray. "You said what a lot of us couldn't." Norma stepped aside. "Come on in." That first Sunday, it was just the two of them. Teddy sat cross-legged on the carpet, eyeing Norma like she might ask him to do math. She didn't. She let him pick the book. He chose Goodnight Moon. Twice. The second week, 3 more kids showed up. Janice arrived early, helping Norma push the furniture back and lay down 2 quilts from the hall closet. The living room transformed into something warmer, lived in. One by one, coats were hung, sippy cups were passed out, and the sound of small feet chasing each other replaced the lake's tired sigh. Norma read aloud from a battered copy of The Snowy Day, pausing when Ava, a gap-toothed 6-year-old in glitter leggings, asked why Peter didn't have a dog. By week 4, the head count had reached 14. One of the kindergarten teachers from Cedar Grove Elementary stopped by to drop off a stack of gently used books. A retired librarian named Myra offered to help catalog them, though Norma suspected it was just an excuse to hang around and hold someone's baby. Word spread fast. People brought snacks, blankets. One man even donated a space heater just in case. No one asked questions. No one brought up Jason, or Melissa, or Benjamin. They just showed up. And Norma, for the first time in years, wasn't alone on a Sunday. She found herself baking again. Her hands remembered the motion even when her brain didn't. She started looking forward to the mess, the sticky fingerprints on the glass coffee table, the half-sucked peppermint stuck under the cushion, the crayon mural slowly growing along the bottom of the hallway wall. Her house smelled like cinnamon again. And once, just once, she caught herself laughing so hard at a knock-knock joke told by a toddler with chocolate on his cheek. She had to excuse herself to the kitchen and breathe. Not to cry, just to hold the moment in place. She kept the voicemail from the unknown woman on her phone, listened to it twice, once during a walk along the lake, and again late at night when the house had gone quiet. The voice, steady but urgent, said Melissa had a habit of starting over. Cities, friend groups, even jobs. That she'd cut people out like threads from a ruined dress. "She did it to me, she'll do it again. If you're serious, I can show you receipts," the woman said. Norma hadn't responded. Not yet. She was still building. On the 5th Sunday, something strange happened. Norma opened the door to find a young couple on the porch. Early 30s, nervous. We don't have kids," the woman said, tucking her hands into the sleeves of her sweater. "But we're both teachers at Cedar Grove Middle. We heard you might need help reading with some of the older ones." Norma blinked, then smiled. "Come in, we have tea." "And goldfish crackers." The woman exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. The man chuckled and nodded. They stepped inside. By mid-afternoon, Norma was seated cross-legged with a group of 3rd graders, taking turns reading from Charlotte's Web. A little boy named Malik tapped her arm after his turn and whispered, "You read like you're in the story." She smiled. That's the trick. Make the words real. Later, while the others played, Norma sat with her journal at the kitchen table, jotting notes for next week. More blankets. Ask Myra to bring winter books. Check on Teddy's boots. The doorbell rang again. Norma glanced up. Confused. Everyone was already here. She opened it. A delivery man stood there, holding a small white envelope. No package, just the envelope. "For Norma Callahan," he said. "Signature required." She signed. The envelope was heavier than expected. She closed the door, peeled it open. Inside was a flash drive. No note, just a return address. Seattle, WA. Her fingers tightened around it. She looked out the window. The kids were laughing. The lake was still. But inside her chest, a storm coiled and waiting. Norma waited until the house was empty. Blankets folded, snack bowls rinsed, little fingerprints wiped from the sliding glass door, but not scrubbed away. She liked that they were still faintly there, like smudged proof that something real had happened. She made herself a cup of lemon ginger tea, poured it into the same ceramic mug Jason had made in high school, lopsided, ugly, heavy as guilt. She hadn't used it in years. Tonight, it felt right. The flash drive sat on the table, unplugged, unopened. She stared at it like it might blink first. But instead of her laptop, she picked up her phone. No voicemail, no text. Nothing from Jason since the message pleading for her to call. She opened his contact, pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 4 times. She expected voicemail, but then, "Mom?" His voice cracked like a screen door in the wind. Quiet, careful. Like maybe she'd called to forgive him. Like maybe if he didn't speak too loudly, he could rewind the last 4 months. Norma didn't play along. "I'm not calling to talk about the picture." Silence. Then softly, "Okay." "I'm calling because I heard something," she said. Something real, in Benjamin's cry. Jason didn't respond. "You always cried like that when you were a baby," she continued. "But only when you were overtired. You never wanted a bottle. You wanted someone who wouldn't rush you." More silence. She let it sit for a beat. Then, "I still love that child, Jason. I always will. But I'm done pretending you and Melissa haven't made your choices. You're grown. You can live with them." A breath. His. Sharp. Gutted. "Mom, I'm not protecting either of you anymore," she said, cutting him off, but not harshly. Just clearly. "And I'm not going to be your emotional janitor every time things get messy." She stood and walked toward the window. The lake was ink black now. Moonlight fractured across the water like something broken and shining. "I know she didn't want me there," Norma said. "She's made that clear 100 ways. But you let her erase me. And when you did that, you erased yourself too." Jason's voice came back, tight and raw. "I'm trying. I don't know how to fix it." "You don't fix people, Jason," she said gently. "You face them." He didn't speak. She didn't expect him to. She took a breath. "I'm texting you 2 numbers." "Okay. One's for a nanny, someone I trust. She's kind and she won't judge what your house looks like right now." "Right now?" he echoed. "I know Melissa's probably not holding it together the way Instagram thinks she is. And I know you're not sleeping. You never were good at hiding that." He exhaled. It wasn't relief. Not quite. Just release. "The second number's for a family therapist," Norma added. "Good one. You both need someone who doesn't already have skin in the game." Jason was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was threadbare. "Do I get to ask if you'll ever come back?" "No," Norma said. Then, after a pause, "But the door stays unlocked. For Benjamin." He sniffed, audible now. "Okay." She was about to hang up when he added softly, "I'm sorry." "I know," she said, and ended the call. She stared at the screen for a long moment. No tears. Not tonight. She opened her messages, sent the numbers, typed nothing else. Then she turned to the flash drive, plugged it into her laptop. A single folder popped up. Melissa K. Proof. Inside, screenshots, dozens, maybe hundreds, emails, forwarded messages, cropped photos, a spreadsheet of dates and addresses, cities Melissa had lived in, connections severed, names blacked out. One file labeled, "Legal threats she never followed through on." Norma clicked one image. It was Melissa. 7 years younger, posing in a photo almost identical to the one she'd just posted with Jason and Benjamin. Same posture, same forced smile. Different man, different baby. Norma's stomach dropped. She clicked another man, another child, different city, different last name. And in the subject line of one email, bold and underlined, "Cease contact immediately. I am not her mother." Norma leaned back. The screen glowed in the dark, burning cold and clean. She reached for her phone, opened a new message to Claire. Subject: urgent. "Let's talk strategy, body. We need to find the others. She's done this before." Her thumb hovered, then hit send. Because now it wasn't about being excluded. Now it was about protecting the next person. The folding chairs weren't matching. The cupcakes had melted slightly in the sun, and the Bluetooth speaker kept cutting out whenever someone walked too close. But it was perfect. Norma stood at the edge of the lake, paper plate in one hand, a sweating glass of lemonade in the other, and watched her life unfold like a patchwork quilt across the yard. Janice was stationed at the drink table, reapplying lipstick between rounds of heavy-pour sangria and sass. Becky, bless her, had wrangled 4 toddlers into a watermelon eating contest near the fire pit, their faces sticky and joy-soaked. Karen and Myra had teamed up on charcuterie duty, though half the table had already been overtaken by goldfish, half-eaten carrot sticks, and glittery macaroni art that had definitely not been part of the original plan. And in the middle of it all, running barefoot across the grass in plastic tiaras and Super Mario shirts, were the kids. Norma's kids. Not by blood, but by love. She closed her eyes and let the sound of them carry her. Laughter, music, little sneakers on packed dirt. A harmonica someone had absolutely not been authorized to play. When she opened her eyes, Claire was standing in front of her. "Wow," Claire said, holding out a plastic fork. "This place is loud." "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Norma replied. Claire didn't answer right away, just looked at her. Really looked. "You did this," she said. "You built something after the fire." Norma smiled softly. "Well, the ashes were warm. I figured I might as well plant something in them." Claire grinned, then reached into her bag and pulled out a black gift box. "No candles this year," she said, offering it. "Just this." Norma set down her plate and opened the box slowly. Inside was a simple wooden frame, and in it, the Callahan Literacy Grant awarded to Norma Callahan for transforming silence into story and story into sanctuary. Norma didn't speak. Her throat tightened. The breeze off the lake tugged at her cardigan like a whisper. "It's real," Claire said. "The board approved it last week. We'll fund 5 local programs a year. And this," she gestured at the reading circle, the kids, the paper lanterns strung between the trees. "This becomes the model." Norma held the frame close to her chest, not protectively, but reverently, like it was something she'd borrowed from a future she never thought she'd live to see. Behind them, the kids burst into a round of shrieking laughter as Becky tripped into the sprinkler. Someone yelled, "Oh my God, Becky's wearing white!" And everyone cracked up like thunder on a clear day. Norma laughed too, loud and real. Claire leaned in. "You okay?" Norma nodded. "I'm more than okay." She scanned the yard again, caught Janice's eye. They exchanged a look, part pride, part relief, part "You didn't think we'd make it here, either did you?" Then Claire added, softer now, "Any word from Jason?" Norma's smile faded, but gently. "He texted me a photo of Benjamin last week," she said. "Finger painting." "Happy?" Claire studied her. "And Melissa?" "She hasn't said a word." Norma set the frame down carefully on the porch railing. "But I don't need one." Claire nodded slowly. "And the others? From the flash drive?" Norma exhaled. "I'm still talking to them. Some are scared, some are furious, but they're not alone anymore. Claire gave her a squeeze on the arm. Neither are you. They stood like that for a moment. Two women in their 60s, windblown and full-hearted, watching a world neither of them had expected to bloom. The sun was sinking lower now, casting the lake in bronze. Norma walked back toward the picnic table, the grass soft under her feet. Someone called out, "Speech!" She laughed, holding up her hands. "Not tonight. I've said enough for one lifetime." But she stepped onto the porch anyway, the wood warm from the sun, and let herself take it in. Every mismatched tablecloth, every crooked banner, every bubble drifting skyward like it had somewhere important to be. She cleared her throat. "I turned 78 this year," she said. "On the actual day, no one called. No one texted. My son and his wife ghosted me." The crowd quieted. She smiled. "So I rewrote the guest list." She looked out at all of them. The women who showed up, the children who trusted her stories, the friends who came early to help and stayed late to clean. "For the rest of my life," she finished. Applause rose up, not polite, not obligatory, fierce, honest. And over the sound of clapping and a harmonica stubbornly hitting the wrong key, a new sound threaded through the chaos. Norma's ringtone. She walked back to the porch. Unknown number. Again. She picked it up. This time, a man's voice. Shaky. Careful. Like he wasn't sure if the world still remembered him. "Is this Norma Callahan? I think I might be Benjamin's brother."